maybe they're right. The more he's in there, the more chaos happens in the streets. And I just want the chaos to slow down. That's what I want.
Of course.
That strategy worked very effectively. Where they're winning is what? Kids in schools, riots, protesting, you know, and they're doing what they're doing. All they're waiting for is the next George Floyd. That's all they need.
How many views on this? Ooh, 500,000. 500,000. 500,000 in 14 hours. This is why I love PB, because it's hard to even figure out, like, pick apart, like, what he's, like, intending to say. He's like, what happened in 2020? There were protests. There were a bunch of protests. And people were like, oh, man, all this chaos. I just want there to be no chaos. So I'll vote for the other party for president. And so is he saying, like, the protests were fake?
They're the ones facing life in prison.
It's like, whoa.
You know, it's a little bit upside down. I would say, no,
hey,
that story, look.
Calm down, man. Okay, we got to do it. Play the clip.
Nice to meet you, man. We never met. Dude, you have such a crazy laugh, don't you?
You got that little crazy laugh. Oh, you got that little crazy laugh.
Okay, what else do these two goobers have to say? Let's check this out.
It was not the country I grew up in, therefore it's not, I mean, well,
right.
What's my attachment to the country?
Exactly.
The place is the people who occupy the place, and it's the physical surroundings. We're in a room, we're in a barn right now.
That's what I've been saying.
And it's not, there's nothing abstract about it.
Calm your ass down.
Abstract about my wife. Like, I like the way she smells. Right?
Wait, what?
But it's also you and your wife. One of my, you know what I mean? So it's real things.
Leave her out of this.
Can touch and smell and taste.
Don't touch his wife.
It's not, there's nothing abstract about it. Just like there's nothing abstract about my wife. Like, I like the way she smells.
Sniffing.
Right? So she's not an idea. Is your wife an idea?
No.
She's a physical presence.
Right. Okay, calm down. Hey.
You have a crazy laugh, don't you?
You got that little crazy laugh.
Your wife got that little crazy smell. Get a zoom in on this.
Oh, your wife got that little crazy smell.
Yeah, we're going to do that every time on this channel that this guy comes on the screen, Tucker Carlson. Oh, you got that little crazy laugh is going to happen. Sorry.
I have such contempt for him. I guess maybe that would make it hard.
Who?
I like interviewing people I disagree with. Chris Cuomo, I interviewed. And, you know, I totally disagree with Chris Cuomo on so much, and I made fun of him so much. I've been really mean to him.
Chris Cuomo.
Oh! I don't have contempt for Chris Cuomo at all.
Oh, great.
But Jon Stewart, I have total contempt for him. I think he's like, I don't have no respect at all.
Why? What happened?
And I never have. And that hasn't changed.
What happened 20 years ago that you're still holding on to? What happened? Okay, this is kind of funny. This guy, what's the guy's name?
You're a moron.
Hey, he's like, there's some people. There's some people I can talk to even though I disagree with them. But there's some people that are so putrid. There's some people that are such pendejos that I just can't even look at their ass. And that's how he feels about Jon Stewart. And I remember this from when I was a kid. Jon Stewart went on Crossfire, which was Tucker Carlson's show. And Jon Stewart was like, you're an idiot, kiss my ass, or whatever he said. I can't remember what he said. I think Jon Stewart went on Crossfire in the early 2000s. I think he stabbed a guy or something. I think he lit the set on fire and stabbed a guy and threw a chair out the window. I could be misremembering that. But the funny thing about that is this guy, Tucker Carlson, he used to wear a bow tie. That was his thing. He would wear a bow tie on TV. But now he's kind of like he's doing like an outdoorsy woodsman kind of thing, which seems like the opposite of a bow tie. He should do that for the intro of the show. It's him. He takes off the bow tie, throws it in the lake.
Jon Stewart kind of disappeared, and you didn't hear anything from him. Well, he has resurfaced. He showed up in Washington, D.C. the other day, looking like a guy who lives in the men's room at your public library, eating imaginary insects out of the air.
Calm down.
He's there.
Looking like a man who walks around the library saying,
you're a moron.
Looking like a man who walks around the public library.
Sniffing.
Okay, one more of those. Looking like a man who walks around the public library for whom
life is long and weird.
Okay, enough. Okay, well, anyway, I do want to continue to be
value-tained. Value-tained.
Oh, God. What does being value-tained sound like? And what about people who are not value-tained?
They make me sick.
Ooh, whoa.
Dan, thoughts on the story?
Yeah?
So this story's been kind of
at the forefront of my mind for at least a few days now. I've been thinking this through, and it speaks to one specific thing about the modern left. When you
This guy's name is Dan Bongine.
oh, it's weird. Everything they do for a reason. So why did this particular speech, a very benign speech about how there's a valuable role as being a mom, if you gave the same speech about fathers, I don't think anyone would say anything. There was nothing about the speech that was particularly even like aggressive. It was just a kind of a normal speech about parents in the home.
So you listen to this. People go absolutely bonkers over this, Rob.
For the ladies present today.
Here we go.
For the ladies present today.
Every single person on this planet is gay.
It rhymes. That's a rhyme I came up with. For the ladies here today.
God bless you.
For one day.
Okay, right.
I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you.
Whoa.
How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career?
They make me sick.
Some of you make...
Oh, well, shit on my life. Another commencement speech story. Man, people are getting out of control with these commencement speeches. You know, that crypto guy at Ohio State University, he's peddling crypto crap. Jerry Seinfeld did one. What did Jerry Seinfeld do again? He threw a Pop-Tart at a guy or something. Killed the guy. He killed a guy with a Pop-Tart. It was sort of a Crossfire type. It was sort of like what Jon Stewart did on Crossfire. When Jon Stewart, I think, killed a guy from what I remember. He knocked over the set and peed on it, I think Jon Stewart did. I can't remember. It's like 20 years ago. But
Praise God.
we have a new commencement speech. What the hell is this guy? He's the Chiefs kicker, Harrison.
But I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Oh, there's one.
I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel.
You know, so yeah, I don't know. Commencement speech should be a pretty easy thing to do. You know, you go up there, you're like,
guys, do a great job.
Hey, guys, you kids out there, you idiots. First and foremost,
You're a moron.
second of all, these students out there listening to this commencement speech that I'm giving right now,
They make me sick.
but in other news, you know, do a good job. But this Chiefs kicker, he does some commencement speech. People can't seem to do a normal one, you know, just like, hey, you know, find out what you really want to do in life and, you know, do your best and have a good time, make some nice friends. You know, it's the easiest thing in the world. But this guy goes into all this crap, and the PBD guys are like, you didn't, what did he say wrong? He just said women should have kids. Women should have a kid and be a mom. What's wrong?
Even like aggressive. It was just a kind of a normal speech about parents in the home.
So I went and I watched this whole speech. Let's take a look. Okay, this is in the first 3 minutes of this speech.
Years, it is not unique. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally.
God bless you.
He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice.
What?
He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic.
Oh.
This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things.
I don't think I follow, but anyway, you get it. Okay, this is weird. Here, I'm just gonna play this part. This is a little weird.
Don't be mistaken. Even within the church, people in polite Catholic circles will try to persuade you to remain silent. There even was an award-winning film called Silence, made by a fellow Catholic, wherein one of the main characters, a Jesuit priest...
Made by a fellow Catholic? You mean Martin Scorsese?
Oh!
Made by a fellow Catholic who will go unnamed. He made Goodfellas. He made Casino. Made Mean Streets. Made Taxi Driver. Not gonna say his name.
That is a pretty inspiring speech from this Chiefs kicker. You're about to graduate from college. He's like, Martin Scorsese sucks and abortion is murder. Have a good one.
Have a good one. I play football.
What position do I play? I play.
God bless you.
I'm really sorry if you had a bad experience.
You better be. You get one of these.
Boom.
Sorry, go ahead.
I genuinely am. That was not my intention.
No problem.
I have never had an intention to make people upset.
It's totally cool.
Zero.
It's fine.
Chris Pan, Ohio State's spring commencement speaker, who
Never heard of him.
mixed opinions during his speech, spoke one-on-one with digital reporter Mark Fearborn.
Ohio State called.
Okay, I kind of like this guy. You know, what was it, like a week ago, 20 minutes ago? Like 15 and a half minutes ago, everybody was making fun of this guy. That guy sucks, he's an idiot. He was
Twitching and twisting.
at Ohio State University for the commencement speech. And now he's doing a sort of apology tour, and this video has 336 views. People are like, we already made fun of you, we're done with you.
We already made fun of you. We're done with you.
We made fun of you for a week, and then you go in the toilet. We don't even bother to click on the apology video. Okay, whatever.
Chris, first of all, what brings you back to Columbus?
I wanted to come and clear up some of the misinformation.
Okay, I'm listening. You know, I'm open to some explanation here.
And I also want to bring some harmony between me
Okay, nope, you blew it.
You blew it with the harmony thing.
It's weird.
and the community. You know, it's very heartbreaking to see a lot of the
fine.
headlines. And I think there was, literally in my speech, I talked about be careful of what you read in the news because they're meant to get attention.
Okay.
And I didn't expect that it would literally happen.
Don't worry about it. Well, they forgot.
So I'm here to set the record straight.
They forgot already about it.
What was the message you were going for in your speech?
Yeah, well, basically, I was going for this.
You know, you got booed when you brought up Bitcoin.
No, he did not. They were saying boo earns. They were doing a Simpsons joke. They were going like this. Boom. They were saying boom, actually. That's how much they liked it. They were going like this. Boom, 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 boom. Well, guys, there we go. Thank God it is Friday. It's a shame it is only
for one day
as of now. We will be keeping an eye on any updates as to whether or not that will be extended. But in the meantime,
life is long and weird.
So have a fun weekend. Really go for it this weekend, you know? Go like this. Go like this. And let all your friends and family know that
they make me sick.
They make you sick. Talk to you guys next week.
Bye-bye. I like to walk out here and think I'm gonna take about a week off. Guys.
You're not getting the whole show, okay? Please, for Christ's sake, become a member on Patreon, okay?
I think a lot of people secretly recognize that America being the world police is like really damaging for people who are on the other side, who are experiencing America's actions, but they don't really give a shit about it because the current order, the current standing benefits them personally. That's it. I'm saying it. So let's get to it. Let's get to the news, ladies and gentlemen. Israeli minister lose it over Spain. Deputy Prime Minister saying from the river to the sea. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, just Israeli leadership being normal again. I love that. Love to see it. Love to see it, folks. Anyway, all right, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, UN's top court, the International Court of Justice, has dished out a little bit of justice. They are ordering Israel to halt military operations in Rafah. Of course, Israel is not going to comply with that. Let's be for real, but here it is.
I'm Geeta Gurumurthy. We begin in The Hague, where judges at the International Court of Justice, that's the United Nations top court, have just ruled that Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and other actions in Rafah, citing the immediate risk to the Palestinian people. It also ruled that Hamas must immediately and unconditionally release its hostages. Let's listen to what the judge, who was speaking in the past half an hour, had to say.
The court recalls that in accordance with Article 75, paragraph 2 of its rules, when a request for the indication of provisional measures has been made, it has the power under its statute to indicate measures that are not in whole or in part other than those requested. In the present case, having considered the terms of the provisional measures requested by South Africa and the circumstances of the case, the court found that the measures to be indicated need not be identical to those requested. The court considered that, in conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole.
What? Do you think that Hamas has made threats against the UN court and that's why they're ruling on it like this? No, I don't think that. I think it's because Israel's actions are so genocidal and so apparent, like so flagrantly genocidal, which is weird to say. I guess there's like a level of genocidal sentiment and ideation that you can engage with that basically is considered to be, something that you can turn a blind eye to. That is the reason why I believe they're doing this, though. I think that they are doing this not because they're threatened by Hamas or some shit. If anything, they're more so threatened by America. Like, literally, America is openly antagonistic to both the ICC and the ICJ at this point, and the UN, and anyone and everyone that dares go against Israel. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy, the circumstances that we're experiencing. It's like if all of these international organs of justice that we created in the aftermath of World War II existed pre-World War II, and like Nazi Germany was the hegemonic superpower and utilized those organs to basically conduct its genocidal affairs and use those international courts and these international organs of justice to basically prop up whatever the they were doing and legitimize whatever the they were doing. It is actually crazy.
Or in part. The court recalls that in its order of January 26, 2024, it ordered Israel inter alia to, I quote, take effective measures to prevent the destruction and ensure the preservation of evidence related to allegations of acts within the scope of Article 2 and Article 3 of the Genocide Convention, end of quote. In the present circumstances, the court is also of the view that in order to preserve
They can demand it, but does that mean Israel will have to listen and halt military offensive? No, Israel will not have to listen. It's like when I tell you that there's a 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour, it doesn't mean that you have to subscribe to avoid it, right? Like you can just see the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour and that'll be fine for you. For some people, it's all right. For others though, if you don't want to see the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub. If you are lucky, here's a 3-minute ad break now. Once again, as I have mentioned time and time again, Jacob Johns, thank you for the 5 tier 1 gifted subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. This is not about like who has the power. There is only one group that has the power. There's only one country that can enforce any kind of regulation in this process. That country is the United States of America. Its refusal to do so means that Israel has the go-ahead and will continue to do whatever the fuck it wants to. Okay? That's it. The UN doesn't matter. The ICJ doesn't matter. The ICC doesn't matter. None of this shit matters. If the rest of the world could universally say, no, fuck Israel, they're not allowed to do this, it's bullshit. And if America said, ha, you're wrong, Israel gets to do whatever it wants, then Israel could do whatever the fuck it wants. However, this is still incredibly significant, just like the ICC arrest warrants and the application even of an arrest warrant for an Israeli leader is massively consequential, massively significant, a genuine sea change. This is also massively consequential and very significant. Why? Because it is yet another step in the right direction. It is a change of course from international organs of justice. It is going against American hegemony. All of this is very important, okay? Even if the Security Council decided, well, in a world where, let's say, America had removed themselves from the Security Council and the UN Security Council decided to enforce a ceasefire, Israel could still do whatever the fuck it wanted to. The only reason why the UN Security Council and its decisions would be important is because America's on the Security Council, and when America doesn't veto a thing against Israel, that means America is openly stating Israel has gone too far. That's it. If we undermine the significance of this, there's a corollary question for people to ask themselves. What does a protest directly accomplish? Yes. This is massively consequential, just like all of the protests are massively consequential. All of this is important. Like I said, there are many different vectors of pressure, and it is important to hit this issue on all fronts, okay? Public pressure in the form of protests and international pressure from these organs of justice, from leaders of countries in the Western world, leaders that are firmly inside of the imperial core. All of this is massively important in moving the needle in the right direction. Why don't you go to a protest then? Famously, I hate going to protests, and I never attend protests. Thank you, Chatter, for living in your own schizophrenic world where you have hallucinated that. I hope that that was an ad debate, even though we already ran the ad break. Following since today, though, I suspect that he's just here to talk shit. 15-minute follower, following since today. Doubtful that this person is, you know, legitimately saying that. Glue trap bubble, live in a bubble. What? Anyway, this is like the chatter the other day that refused to look at a whole video and not just a clip. Yeah, I know. I was timed out for a week because I said AOC's a neocon. That's extremely heavy-handed by your mod. AOC's a neocon? Bro, first of all, how are you tweeting or how are you posting if you're timed out for a week? That's number one. And number two, what the f do you mean? I had to make a new account, lol. We know. We know. That was not a real question. I know how you're posting in the chat. Now this is gonna get banned too, most likely. But you're insane for saying AOC's a neocon. They probably timed you out for a week because they did not want you to say even more unhinged shit. Why is she so hawkish towards Russia? Yeah, I know. I think being hawkish towards Russia does not make one a neocon. I'm just gonna, you know, I need you to understand words have meaning, okay? Like being aligned with the American State Department on like against Russia, it depends on like what kind of energy you're placing, especially considering that the Progressive Caucus literally pushed originally for a pretty apt provision that they immediately had to go back on because they got bullied. But they also talked about conditional aid to Ukraine with the goal of like reaching a ceasefire agreement. If you remember, the Progressive Caucus did that, and immediately everyone was like, "You guys are crazy." Blah, 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 blah. But Jesus Christ. Libs on Twitter are creaming their pants over Caitlin Collins, pressuring Theodore Jebediah Cruz. Oh, Charlotte ladder climber. I'm blocked by her. That's awesome. We'll look at that in a little bit. Let's just continue with this.
Evidence related to allegations of acts falling within the scope of Article 2 and Article 3 of the Genocide Convention. Israel must take effective measures.
Why do you sneeze like my baba? It's because I'm uncoded. I'm in uncle territory. And I think the older you get, the more insane your sneezes get. Actually, it's very like, it's something that happens when you get older. Like, I still remember how terrified I was when my grandfather would sneeze from the other room because it felt like the entire house was shaking. I don't know what it is, but the older you get, the more powerful your sneezes become. And I genuinely don't know what the f that is about, but it's just a thing that happens. How you sneeze is a choice. Prove me wrong. That's insane.
To ensure the unimpeded access to the Gaza Strip of any commission of inquiry, fact-finding mission, or other investigative body mandated by competent organs of the United Nations to investigate allegations of genocide.
I'm gonna pee.
The judge there, the ICJ, just to give you some initial responses, David Mercer, spokesperson for the Israeli government, has said there is no power in the world that will push us to commit a public suicide, because that's what this is, to stop our war against Hamas. That's repeating a line that, of course, a consistent line that we've heard from the Israeli government, who I think are meeting now. There was a call for Mr. Netanyahu to meet his top ministers. And Hamas, as reported by the Reuters news agency, has said that they welcome the ICJ plan to send the investigation committee into Gaza. They say they would promise any cooperation that they can give. And they have said that they welcome the decision on Rafah, saying it doesn't go far enough. It's urging an end for Israel's offensive on all of Gaza and looking at whether the Security Council will now look to try and implement this ruling. Well, let's get more now. Our diplomatic correspondent Paul Adams is in Jerusalem, and he told us more about the immediate reaction there in Israel.
If this was the the measure that was anticipated, with some debate as to whether or not the court would finally take that additional step. No official reaction from the government so far. It's due to discuss this ruling later today. There is a reaction from the hardline finance minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has called it irrelevant, and he's dismissed the court.
Itamar Ben-Gvir is not the hardline finance minister. That's Smotrich. Itamar Ben-Gvir is interior security, but like national security. But it doesn't even matter. The idea that like Israel did not respond to this is so funny, because they definitely did respond to it. They immediately started bombing. Like, that's a response, man. Wait, why didn't this work? What is happening? I'm clicking on the actual link and it's like taking me to something very different. I don't know why. I grew up with a kid that sneezed like an old man one day. When he's 80, he'll sneeze and the world will just disappear. Okay, can we just move away from the sneeze discourse and get back to the matter at hand here? Here's the thing, okay? They did respond. They responded by doing the most Israel thing that you can do, which is to continue bombing. They literally were like, oh yeah, dude? Oh yeah? Oh, you want us to stop doing what? Bombing Palestinians? Sorry, not gonna happen. In the first response to the International Court of Justice decision, intense Israeli airstrikes hit amidst the tents of displaced persons in Al-Mawazi area near the city of Han Yunis. Their immediate response was to continue the bombing campaign, which is, of course, as we've talked about before, very, very Israel. The ICJ ruled today that Israel must immediately halt its military offensive in Rafah. A question for the Biden admin now: does it attack the legitimacy of an international court for the second time in a week, even after setting its own red lines on an attack in Rafah? Biden has a choice between dismantling the international rule-based order that he had been so keen to preserve when Russia invaded Ukraine, or throwing it away at the service of a deeply unpopular war carried by its ally. Yeah. And, it's really shitty that the International Court of Justice is not doing what it's supposed to do, which is just shut the fuck up and allow us and our allies to do whatever we want and never criticize us or our allies. So I don't really understand what's going on here. The rule-based international order is falling apart right in front of our eyes, everybody. It almost feels like it was fabricated specifically to make liberals feel good about the potential rules and order that we were dishing out. Also, the U.S. judge at the International Court of Justice, Sarah Cleveland, voted in favor of today's order for Israel to halt its offensive on Gaza's Rafah. Biden nominated Cleveland to the State Department's legal advisor in 2021, but she was never confirmed. When elected to be an ICJ judge last November, the top U.S. diplomat, Secretary Blinken, praised the court as a guardian of international law, and Biden had said the ICJ was one of humanity's most critical institutions to advance peace around the world. But what you failed to recognize there is that back then we were using the ICJ against Russia as God intended, as America intended. For years and years, I have told you, and many of my naysayers got so mad every time I said all of these international organs of justice and many of the actual NGOs, for example, 100% up until the October 7, were simply operating at the behest of the American interests, at the behest of America's State Department interests. Okay? Everyone would immediately go, Hassan, how dare you say that? These guys are abiding by the rules. There's like standards that we're setting. No, those standards have always been historically used against whoever we declare war on, while we openly violate said standards on a regular basis. And now you are seeing it. You're seeing that reality. You are experiencing that reality in broad daylight. The one time that these courts are actually doing their job evenly, okay, with minor criticisms, by the way, not even taking maximalist positions that I would take in the face of actual ethnic cleansing, okay, you're seeing that global order fall apart. the idea that we care about said global order falls apart. Of course, if you were a child, you maybe didn't recognize that none of this shit mattered when we already had a law in the books since 2002 that says if any of our guys or allies are ever prosecuted for war crimes at the Hague, at the ICC, we will literally invade a NATO nation. We will invade the Hague. That is the law. Since 2002. Why the would we have ever given a shit about, like, why did anybody ever even care about the notion that America actually cares about democracy and cares about defending peace in the world and yada yada yada.
As anti-Semitic. These are the sorts of remarks you would expect to hear from some of Mr. Netanyahu's more hardline colleagues. But when it comes to the order to halt the Rafah offensive, I think we can expect a big fat no from the government here. And I think
it is pretty ridiculous, by the way, that the ICJ now is literally, the ICJ currently is basically reasserting the red line that the American government put on Israel. It's not like they're saying halt all operations in Gaza. They're saying red line, American red line of invading and like sieging Rafah is a red line that we would like to enforce. And yet, that is a bridge too far for Israel again and again and again. It's very odd. What will America do? A very tricky position, considering that Joe Brandon himself said that this was his red line. Let's see how the American government reacts to it.
They will probably complain that the court, in coming to its conclusions, only cited what the UN had told them about the situation in southern Gaza. The Israelis have been arguing for some time that they are taking steps, notwithstanding their military operation in Gaza, that they are taking steps to improve the provision of food and goods into the Gaza Strip. It's very noticeable, for example, that for the 3 weeks or so after May the 7th, when the order to launch the offensive in Rafah began, only about 140 trucks of UN aid entered through the Keren Shalom crossing, the most important crossing point from Israel. But, and this was something the court did not refer to, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trucks of commercial foodstuffs have gone in through that.
Seems to me that the BBC is being more skeptical of the anti-Semitic claims made by Israel. Am I just imagining this, or are they finally caving to the left a tiny bit? They're not caving to the left, man. It's just unconscionable. Israel's actions are truly unimaginably cruel. So cruel that, yes, these guys who actually care about maintaining the presence of order in an international rule-based order have to inevitably say, okay, well, they're kind of fucking up a little bit. There is no caving to the left. It's just caving to, I guess, reality.
That very same route, allowed in by Israel, escorted by armed guards inside the Gaza Strip, and taken into the marketplace in Gaza. There is food to be had in places. A lot of Gazans can't afford it, but that was an element of Israel's response to the situation in Gaza that the court simply didn't allude to. They also obviously did not allude to Israel's military rationale for attacking Gaza, the complete dismantling of the last remaining battalions of Hamas, and the importance, Israel would say, of securing the border between Gaza and Egypt to prevent the smuggling of weapons, which could lead to a few.
I just got here, but the South African judge Talidi in the majority did interpret it as a full ceasefire. Seems a little absurd that there's such confusion and vagueness over such a crucial part of the decisions. I mean, regardless of whether or not it's a full ceasefire or just a ceasefire in Rafah, it doesn't matter, because even the ceasefire in Rafah is seemingly not something that like Israel is interested in following.
Future conflict. Now, all of this was not referred to by the court. The court obviously feels that of in excess of 800,000 people, we think it's probably closer to 1 million by now, it is evidence of the increased risk to life and well-being of a huge proportion of the Palestinian population of the Gaza Strip. And that was enough to persuade those judges who had not been persuaded so far to say enough is enough, this operation has to stop.
Paul Adams there speaking to us a bit earlier from Jerusalem. And just to let you know that since we spoke to Paul, David Menzer, who is a spokesperson for the Israeli government, did give some reaction to the news to the BBC. And he said there is no power in the world that will push us to commit a public suicide, because that's what this is, to stop our war against.
I do love how dramatic Israel is. Like they have a penchant for drama that I do appreciate. Like if they weren't, if they weren't deploying this at the behest of their genocidal ambition, I would laugh and enjoy it. Like they literally are just like, dude, oh, wow, that's right. International Court of Justice. Where is the justice? You are making me kill myself. Is that what you want? I bet you would love it if I killed myself. You are Hamas. It's so funny. It's like, dude, if you don't let me kill 3 school buses full of children every day, it's basically akin to my own personal Holocaust. You want me to kill myself. Just say it. You hate me. Say it. It's awesome. We will die if we stop killing 3 school buses full of children. You are gaslighting. You are doing emotional abuse.
Hamas. We understand the Israeli government are meeting or going to be meeting soon to discuss this ruling. We've also had reports on Reuters of Hamas reaction. Hamas apparently calling on the UN Security Council to implement the ICJ Court of Justice decision, welcoming the ruling and welcoming the call for an investigation, an inquiry, saying that they would cooperate with that. Also, we've had a response from the Palestinian Authority saying they welcome the decision, as again reported by Reuters news agency, saying that it represents an international consensus to end the war on the Gaza Strip, according to a Palestinian presidential spokesperson. We will keep you across all the reaction. Of course, we're going to be looking to the US to see what...
Am I correct in assuming anyone who trusted the US before this genocide don't trust or like the US anymore? We're showing our ass to the whole world? I mean, not necessarily. I think a lot of people secretly recognize that America being the world police is like really damaging for people who are on the other side, who are experiencing America's actions and America's allies' actions, but they don't really give a shit about it because the current order, the current standing benefits them personally. That's it. I think a lot of people personally recognize that. They just don't care. It's more so about the optics for them. Like a lot of people recognize, a lot of liberals in America and a lot of people in the Western world recognize that America's actions are truly unconscionable since World War II, since the aftermath of World War II, but it benefits them, so they don't really make too much of a stink about it, or at least they feel like it benefits them, so they don't make too much of a stink about it. And yet they still try to maintain this liberal posture that they actually do care about some sense of order. And it's always this there's always this conflict when the enemies are voiceless, dehumanized groups of individuals from countries that you don't give a shit about. That's one thing, right? When America's doing the violence and the war in Iraq, Afghanistan, and can portray its enemies successfully as like criminal terrorists that are not defending themselves and their nation against a foreign invasion, but instead these are people who are just like, they want the West to burn and they hate us and they're American phobic or whatever the which America was successfully able to portray its war on terror, its failure of a war on terror, its destabilizing, incredibly inhumane war on terror as such. It's one thing. People just kind of shut the fuck up and go along with America's imperial ambitions. The situation is a little bit different when it's not just America doing it, but an extension of America doing it. And the extension of America is doing it in broad daylight with American weapons, with American permission, and also doing it in a way that is even more violent than what America has done, which is unimaginable. It's kind of crazy to think that what Israel is doing if it did it for like 20 years, it would literally be like what Israel is doing is so completely and wholly unacceptable, because under international law, Israel obviously does not have a right to defend itself in a territory that it already occupies as a belligerent occupier, right? Like, it just does not. It's not like America was already occupying Afghanistan and then chose to bomb the shit out of it, right? It occupied it for 20 years, and it was unconscionable, it was unjust, it was inhumane, a litany of war crimes there, destabilized the entire region. However, even then, the civilian to enemy combatant casualty numbers were nowhere near as bad as what Israel has done in such a short time frame. So ultimately, Israel has been able to basically move the needle in the worst direction, even taking it further than what the United States had done.
The White House say whether this has any impact on Biden's current position of ongoing support for Israel, though of course he has warned repeatedly the Israeli leadership not to go into Hamas territory in Rafah because
the International Court of Justice.
Here is DW News covering it as well.
Has ordered Israel to stop its military offensive in the city of Rafah in southern Gaza. The United Nations top court described the humanitarian situation there as disastrous and ordered Israel to allow unhindered access of aid. Israel has repeatedly said it has the right to defend itself from Hamas militants and is unlikely to comply with the ruling. The court also ordered Israel to report its progress in applying the measures within a month. The ruling was in response to a request from South Africa. Though the court has no way to enforce its decision, the ruling does add further international pressure on the Israeli government. Here is the president of the court, Nawaf Salam.
The court considers that, in conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
Well, let's look at what this might mean with Mark Weller. He's Professor of International Law and International Constitutional Studies at the University of Cambridge in the UK. Welcome to DW.
Is that true, what he said, that the court has no enforcement mechanism? Yeah, it is true. But it doesn't matter because it's still very important, okay? Because the court is a very important part of the international rule-based order, okay? And that is precisely the reason why, obviously, we have Americans in the court. And like when Professor Sarah H. Cleveland was elected to the International Court of Justice, Secretary of State Blinken in 2021 literally praised the court as a guardian of international law. And Biden said the ICJ was one of humanity's most critical institutions to advance peace around the world. I think that we forget that a lot of this stuff, a lot of diplomacy, a lot of politics is really obviously held together by enforcement mechanisms, violence, imperialism, and that sort of thing. But there is definitely an aesthetic side of this as well. The optics of this has to stick. And I've been chirping about how these institutions simply work at the behest of American interests for decades. And for decades it has been true, but there is a level of I guess pain tolerance that Israel has definitely crossed. That threshold has been crossed. One, partially because Israel is not the United States of America. America gets to do whatever the fuck it wants, but Israel does not have that same leeway, does not have that same bandwidth, okay? And two, it is an occupier that is doing this to the occupied population. Like, even when you think about another American ally, imagine if Nazi Germany had the support of the world's strongest superpower, that's Israel. Wake up. Wait, what? What the fuck are you saying? The world's strongest superpower, Israel? Israel's not the world's strongest superpower at all. What the fuck do you mean? Also, Nazi Germany, Israel did not exist back then. He's saying Israel has U.S. support? Oh, he's saying us. Oh, he's saying, imagine if Nazi Germany, I already made that. Okay, I already made that comparison earlier. Yes. By the way, that could have happened. Like, we were kind of close to that. If the business plot had succeeded, we would literally be doing that. We would be living in that world right now. And who knows what would have happened. Anyway, it's not just Pearl Harbor. It was even before then. Like America was going through its own fascist. America went through its own capital owners having fascist ambitions moment as well.
Israeli citizens suffered terrible atrocities on October the 7th last year. Is the government of Israel argued in court that it's taking exceptional measures to minimize harm to the civilian population in Gaza. Today's ruling does seem to indicate that the court sees things rather differently.
Well, Israel is, of course, entitled to the right to self-defense in response.
Dude, I saw comments with thousands of us talking about that Patton "we fought the wrong enemy" quote. Tried to say it was Nazi apology and they got downvoted to hell. We're cool. Oh yeah. This is why I do personally believe that while Nazi Germany, the Third Reich, fell apart and Nazi Germany lost in World War II, fascism absolutely won. Fascism as an ideology, as an ideological tool, was immediately we love taking up the mantle of all of that nonsense. We absolutely have genuinely continued that tradition. Both in our domestic affairs, certainly, and absolutely when it comes to our international enforcement.
To the horrible, atrocious events of the 7th of October, but the right to self-defense is not unlimited, and it can never transgress humanitarian law, the law that supports the dignity of human persons, human beings, in any circumstance, even in war. And the court has now spoken for the third time in just...
You have to remember, it's you're saying, I can't believe that a professor is peddling the Israel has a right to defend itself narrative. This is the German broadcaster. Okay, you're watching the German broadcaster. It is not even remotely shocking that the German broadcaster is doing that. Have you seen what is going on in Germany? I have. You know what? I'm actually going to point to this right now. I wanted to show you something very funny. Nathan Tankis went to the closed screening of The Commandant's Shadow last night, where he had by far the most disturbing experience was the Auschwitz commandant Rudolf Höss's grandson, Kai Höss, and his Christian evangelism for Israel. Okay? If you want to understand where we're at, if you want to understand where Germany's vibes are at, there's two videos I want to show you. One is the liberal rich Germans also chanting the Germany for Germans only shit. Okay? And the other video is this. Here, let's help you get it a little bit. This is the guy. This is the grandson of the dude who was prominently featured in Zone of Interest, Rudolf Höss. Okay, let's see what he had to say about Israel.
Have a moment. Sure you can, of course. Or the ramp. Is that better? Yeah, the ramp in the back. I commend you on taking on your grandfather's legacy, and not legacy, but facing it. I understand. But I find listening to you very, very concerning. Because it feels to me, as a grandchild of Holocaust survivors, that you've replaced a Nazi anti-Semitism with a Christian evangelical anti-Semitism about defined going to...
Thank you, Andrew. Misunderstood.
I don't think I'm misunderstood.
Well, you know, I love Israel because I know they're God's people.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly. That is a form of anti-Semitism. Christian evangelical.
He said, I love Israel because they are God's chosen people. You don't understand it. You don't understand.
Have a moment. Sure.
It was shocking just being in the room with Rudolf Höss's grandson, let alone confronting him. I was my dad's +1, and neither of us realized beforehand. I'm still processing it. There were also many disturbing things about the event, including that it was acquired on October 9th. The panel was very clear this documentary was explicitly meant to counter discussions of Israel's genocide without actually mentioning Palestinians. The movie literally opens and closes with Rudolf Höss's son and grandson in an Israeli desert, with Kai Höss providing Israel voiceover. Compare what Kai Höss had to say to what Billy Graham had to say behind closed doors. Kai Höss knows that he should never say synagogue of Satan about Jews like me who reject Israel, but it's fundamentally the same worldview. It's from the Nixon tapes. Nixon explains how Israeli Jews are the best Jews. They both agree that Jews control the media. Billy Graham explains the synagogue of Satan and how Jews had a stranglehold on Germany, but Hitler went about it wrong.
What does it mean? Does it mean that all Jews are bad? No. But it does mean that most Jews are left way, particularly the younger ones like that.
I love that they're literally just repeating exactly in an Israeli desert with Kai Hus providing Israel voiceover. Compare what Kai Hus had to say to what Billy Graham had to say behind closed doors. Kai Hus knows that he should never say synagogue of Satan about Jews like me who reject Israel, but it's fundamentally the same worldview. It's from the Nixon tapes. Nixon explains how Israeli Jews are the best Jews. They both agree that Jews control the media. Billy Graham explains the synagogue of Satan and how Jews had a stranglehold on Germany, but Hitler went about it wrong.
What does it mean? Does it mean that all Jews are bad? No. It does mean that most Jews are left way, particularly the younger ones like that.
I love that they're literally just repeating exactly what the Nazis believed and basically saying, no, you don't understand. Like, all Jews, they go to Israel and that's fine. And they're great. They're great over there. Okay. Not here. Because when they're here, a lot of them like this commie shit. Okay. And I don't like it. They are literally repeating Judeo-Bolshevism as a propaganda point because they legitimately believe it. Okay. And they're not technically wrong. Historically speaking, yes, Jews have sided with justice. They have, in many instances, been open socialists and communists. So they're not wrong when they say that. Obviously, they're wrong in a monolithic understanding of it, which they're not even particularly saying. It is wild. It is wild. Here, listen. They're radical socialists. They're radical communists.
The only lead I have on this is the reason the best Jews actually.
Added to the mountain of evidence that anti-communism is inherently fascist? Of course it is. Wow, I wonder why the Jews in Russia were more in favor of the socialists than the czarists in Russia. Exactly. The best Jews are actually the Israeli Jews.
They are the Israeli Jews. That's right. Because Israel, and the reason Mrs. Mayer supports me, which she does, and Diane does too, is for a very fundamental reason. It has nothing to do with, they know the Democratic candidate will be catering to the domestic Jewish vote. She supports me. Because she knows the great danger to Israel is Russia. And she knows that in the crisis involving Jordan, that I face the Russians down for. She knows I'm the only one who knows. She knows that a Democrat gave with the communists to the Russians. See, that's the point. She's talking. We talked about this. Rabin is the same way. Rabin, of course. Oh, yeah. Russian Jew. Boy, does he know that. But however, in this country, we must be under no illusion. You're aware of that, aren't you? You're aware of the fact that in the media, we confront almost a solid block of people. They don't, it isn't the aim, and he's the point of the thing. They're after him because he took the whole thing on. And it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It happens so that insofar as the media is concerned, the power of media, they've got it. They've got it.
He's like, yeah, the Jews control the media. Oh, man. Also, the Nixon Jew count of July 1971 is the name given to then President of the United States, Richard Nixon's attempts to demote and remove Jews from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
And they're the ones putting out the pornographic stuff and putting out everything.
Directly. By the way, this is exactly, when I say this is verbatim what the Nazis believed, okay, with the exception of Israel because it didn't exist back then. This is word for word what the Nazis believed and said, bar for bar. Now, you might be shocked and say, but that's Richard Nixon. And that seems quite similar to like cultural Marxism and, you know, George Soros propaganda and many other things that right-wingers repeat on a regular basis nowadays. And you would be right, because it is. It is just saying the exact same shit while simultaneously changing the narrative a little bit, massaging it a little bit so that it fits modern sensibilities. Just something to consider.
You see, the Bible makes a distinction, Mr. President, between two groups of Jews. One is called the synagogue of Satan. Yeah. You get that because you know it's the heart of Earth is Jewish.
Yes.
Capital F. The Bible says there are two different kinds.
There's two different kinds. And those people in the latter days is called the remnant of God's people, which will be Jewish people. And then there's the synagogue of Satan. And nearly all of your religious deceptions in the latter days, what the Bible speaks, latter days can be 1,000 years.
This is cool, man. I just want to also point out another thing. There's a reason why we never look at this kind of stuff, because when we live in America, we have a way to understand Christianity and Christian fundamentalism and separate that from like Christianity across the board. There's a reason why these incredibly powerful people are having this conversation in private, and no one will think that like these are mullahs, okay, who are operating on fundamentalism, and America is demonstrably like a Christian fundamentalist fascist nation. The reason why we don't view this conversation in the same vein as like an Iranian mullah is because of our monolithic understanding, Islamophobia in general, our monolithic understanding of our enemies or of marginalized communities in general, or, you know, countries that we have dished out a lot of violence to. Whereas in the United States of America, where we live, we of course recognize that this is not representative of every single American. Just so you understand, although all things considered, if you were to operate on the same fucking boundaries that you, the same smoke that you have for, I guess, Islam, the Islamic world in general, as an Iranian, are you saying that the mullahs are good? You have to literally be the most delusional person on the planet if you are thinking that I'm saying the mullahs are good when comparing them to Richard Nixon. You are basically reinforcing the exact same point that I've made time and time again. A lot of people operate on the boundaries of, well, you know, America's good ultimately. No, when I compare a foreign adversary to America, that is the worst comparison I could make for said foreign adversary. Okay? I'm saying it's bad. I'm saying that in many instances, it is no different. And in this circumstance, it is no different than the Islamic fundamentalism demonstrated by those in positions of power in the Muslim world. As an Iranian, yes, but also liberalism aesthetics require one to hide the nutty parts of religion. Mullahs don't hide it because they're not liberal. Yes.
What they call the synagogue of Satan. In other words, they are energized by a supernatural power called the devil. This is what the Bible teaches. Whether you believe it or don't believe it, this is the biblical teaching. This is what I believe. And I believe that you have, they have a strange brilliance about them.
Oh. What the was that? These Jews, they have a strange brilliance about them.
They have a strange brilliance about them. They're smart, and they are energized, in my judgment, by a supernatural power.
Well, also they do something else, but they're not really smart.
And you see, of course, Hitler didn't. They had a stranglehold on Germany, on the banking of Germany, on everything in Germany, and the media. They had the whole thing.
That's so funny. Oh God. It's like the Japanese believing in Jew magic, so they wanted the Jews to on their side. It's a little bit of column A, column B, where they're like, they're basically saying that like fascist Jews in Israel are the good Jews, and the anti-fascist Jews here in America are satanic Jews that control the media and degenerate Western supremacist, the Western culture and Western civilization. So for the domestic Jews, they have the same exact smoke that Hitler had. It's like if the Havara Agreement actually turned into reality, basically. Okay, that's it. That's like that is basically the mentality that they have. If like if the Havari agreement worked and like Hitler was like, yeah, you know what, instead of like killing all the Jews, we're just going to ship them forcibly to Israel, okay? Then in that situation, it's like basically the exact same attitude that these guys have, because they're like, our domestic Jews are degenerate pornographers that are, doing unlimited immigration into America in an effort to displace white Americans, white supremacist Americans, right? So we got to ship them off so they can all become fascist Jews in Israel and then be the good kind of Jew. If you want to know more about Nixon's takes on Jewish people, here it is. The Jews are born spies. Less than a week after the U.S. Supreme Court dealt a blow to the Nixon administration and sanctioned further publication of the Pentagon Papers, President Nixon and a senior White House aide discussed the role of race and religion as drivers of espionage. This conversation stands as one of the cruder examples of Nixon's prejudices and his willingness to air them among confidants. Wait, hold on.
I can imagine how the fact that elsewhere must be careful. I can't be
this off's a bit rocket for the Echelon playbook, but I
couldn't be a job running my script. It is right. It's always about burgers.
Why is it that you find what he's saying amusing? What? What do you mean? Like, what am I supposed to do? It's psychotic. It is literally verbatim one-to-one Nazi shit. It is like, I don't know what to say about it. It's basically a further confirmation of everything I say all the time. That Republicans have basically continued that exact same fascist tradition, okay? Which, like, I would say even Democrats as well. Like, the American government broadly has continued the same fascist tradition, okay? It's just that the aesthetics are different.
But there are
They're playing Name the Jew. The problem is the they that we're talking about here is the president at the time, okay? Hassan really seems to resent the United States. Oh my God, dude. That's your takeaway? What is it that you think you know better than the president of that time? Are you, bro, this is literally like being like, well, Adolf Hitler, do you think you know better than he did at the time? The f do you mean? I know better than the president of this time too. Please tell me you're trying to bait like literally 12 minutes before the top of the hour. You cannot be defending Richard Nixon in the chat, right? Especially in like one of the surprisingly even more indefensible moments of Richard Nixon. Like this is uniquely bad even for Richard Nixon. Okay, these guys are baiting, right? There's a lot of like weirdo anti-Semites in here today. What's happening? Like, well, what's going on? There's like hella people in here that are just like, oh, well, was he wrong though? Yes, dude. Yes, he was. He was wrong. No, I don't think that like Jews are monolithic in their approach, or that they control the media, or that they're all descendants of the synagogue of Satan. Yeah, why did these pigs say that the German Jews had a complete stranglehold over a number of industries, meaning they were the capitalists, and at the same time claimed Judeo-Bolshevism existed? It doesn't have to make sense. Our enemy is both weak and strong at the same time. It just, it is, I'll bring it back to a place that you guys understand. You know how a lot of my haters will literally be like, oh, Hassan never donates, right? And then, but I do. So then when I do, they'll turn around and say, oh, he just did it for PR. He did it for clout. It's because the reason why, like the foundational disagreement has nothing to do with my actions. It's just pure resentment. They're just trying to make it stick by any means necessary. And that's how anti-Semitism is as well. In this case, they're both simultaneously saying Jews are you know, defenders of Judeo-Bolshevism, defenders of like socialist, communist, moral degeneracy and rot and yada, 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 while simultaneously saying they also control all the media and also all of the banks. It doesn't have to be true, and it is not. It's just a way to make your resentment stick. Also, the Synagogue of Satan sounds badass. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it does low-key kind of go hard. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they were saying this behind closed doors, but like it sounds incredible. It sounds dope. But that's like, you know, that's besides the point. I know that they didn't imply it in a dope way, but it is kind of cool to be like, yeah, we are descendants of Synagogue of Satan. But yeah, ultimately, it doesn't come from like real valid. It doesn't come from real valid anger and real valid criticisms. It has nothing to do with that at all. It's more so post hoc rationalizations for why you have this, you carry this resentment to begin with. You have detailed Jews as the out-group. So now you will say that they are both capital owners who control all of the different institutions and instruments of capitalism, and you will also simultaneously say they want socialism and they are actually anti-capitalist. Both. Anyway, let's continue.
Very few of them become communists. If they do, they're likely to get an Angela Davis. They're more of an activist type.
As a matter of fact, very few of them become communists. If they do, they're more likely to get into Angela Davis. They're more the activist type, and they throw bombs and this and that. But the
Negroes, anti-Negro spies. Friendly on the intellectual. Not smart enough. Not smart enough.
A little bit of anti-black white supremacist resentment there too. You know, you got to put that in there.
Spies, the Jews are born spies. You know somebody who just in it, up to their necks. Basic deviousness, but also inheritance.
Bro, this is literally just Hitler, okay? Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I have to show you some of this fascist propaganda. Like, I need you to... Here. Okay. Here are some stereotypes and canards, okay? Modern economic antisemitism is a double helix of intersecting paradigms. The first associating the Jew with paupers and savages, and the second conceiving of Jews as conspirators, leaders of a financial cabal seeking global domination. A World War II era Slovak propaganda poster exhorts readers not to be a servant of the Jew. Foxman describes the 6 facets of canards used by proponents of economic anti-Semitism. All Jews are wealthy. Jews are stingy and greedy. Powerful and wealthy Jews control the world. Judaism emphasizes profit and materialism. Jews may cheat non-Jews. Jews use their wealth and power to benefit their own kind. Summarize the myths as Jews control the banks, the money supply, the economy, the businesses of the community, of the country, of the world. He uses illustrations, many slurs, and proverbs in several different languages, suggesting that Jews are stingy, greedy, miserly, or aggressive bargainers. I want to see here. One form of economic antisemitism in the Middle Ages was a mass of legal restrictions imposed on the occupations and professions of Jews. Local rulers and church officials ruled many professions to the Jews, pushing them into the marginal occupations considered repugnant, such as tax and rent collecting and money lending, but tolerated them as a necessary evil, usury being a sin in both Christianity and Islam. Catholic doctrine then held that money lending for interest was a sin and forbade the Christians. Not being subject to that restriction, Jews dominated this business. The Torah and the later sections of the Hebrew Bible criticize usury, but interpretations of biblical prohibition vary. Since few other occupations were open to them, Jews were motivated to take up money lending. That was said to show Jews were usurers, which then led to many negative stereotypes and propaganda. The natural tension between creditors, typically Jews, and debtors, typically Christians, were added to the social, political, religious, and economic strains. More dangerous was lending to the monarchs of Europe, which enabled them to finance their endless wars and projects. Some monarchs would revenge on repayments, often accusing their Jewish moneylenders of various crimes. The nobility would also borrow large sums to maintain their lavish lifestyles. Peasants who were forced to pay their taxes to Jews could personify them as people taking their earnings and remain loyal to the lords on whose behalf the Jews worked. Also present in the Middle Ages was the insistence by European sovereigns that the Jews belonged to them in a peculiar way, different from that of their other subjects, which was evident in examples of the English legal code, which portrayed the kings as tutor and defender of the Jews and of the Jews as his possessions, writing that for those Jews and all that they possess belonged to the kind as if they were his private property. On the 19th century, Jews came so closely associated with capitalism that some even viewed the Jews as the creator of capitalism, according to Muller. Those who embraced capitalism tended to be sympathetic to the Jews, and those who rejected capitalism tended to be hostile to the Jews. Except the irony, of course, is Karl Marx himself, being a Jewish person. Another anti-Semite in the chat. Nixon just spitting for real. Because many Jews are employed in occupations that Marx considered non-productive, he singled out Jews for particular criticism and blamed Judaism for the exploitation and alienation of workers. This is why they say Karl Marx is an anti-Semite, despite being of a Jewish background himself. Moses Mendelssohn argued that the contrary, that commercial activity was just as valid as beneficial as manual labor. Many a merchant, while quietly engaged at his desk and blah, 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 blah. Marx concluded that Judaism was responsible for the alienation of many Jewish workers. In his 1844 work on the Jewish question, Marx distinguished between the Sabbath Jew and the everyday Jew. Marx argued that, particularly speaking, everyday Judaism was a commercial practice, not a theology. According to Perry, Marx believed that Jews are the embodiment of capitalism, money system in action, and the creators of all its evil consequences on humanity, which is the reason why they say he is a anti-Semite, which once again is ironic because of this part, which is the most important part of this conversation. Jewish Bolshevism is an anti-Semitic and anti-communist canard that is based on the claim that Jews have been the driving force behind or are disproportionately involved in communism, sometimes more specifically Russian Bolshevism. The expression was the title of a pamphlet, The Jewish Bolshevism, and became current after the 1917 October Revolution in Russia, featuring prominently in the propaganda of the anti-Bolshevik white forces during the Russian Civil War. The idea spread worldwide in the 1920s with the publication and the circulation of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion that was popularized by Jewish ancestry of many leading Bolsheviks, most notably Leon Trotsky, during and after the October Revolution. Daniel Pipe says that primarily through the Protocols of Elder Zion, the whites spread these charges to an international audience. James Webb wrote that it is rare to find an anti-Semitic source after 1917 that does not stand in the debt to the white Russian analysis of the revolution. The label Judeo-Bolshevism was used in Nazi Germany to equate Jews with communists, implying that communism served Jewish interests and or that all Jews were communists. Remember, they literally simultaneously were claiming Jews control the money supply and the global order and all the banks and all the media, and also simultaneously saying Jews were all communists and were in control of the labor force and were responsible for any kind of revolutionary sentiment, which they did not like. This is precisely the reason why the first people that were placed in concentration camps were not, many of them were Jewish, by the way, were not placed on the virtue of Judaism, of being of Jewish descent, but instead placed there because they were trade unionists, socialists, and communists. So the idea that like Nazi Germany was ever actually socialist, National Socialist, was ridiculous from the jump. Out of the Bolshevik revolutionaries, only 1 to 2 was of Jewish descent. I mean, is it so hard for the Nazis to look this up? I don't think you understand. It does not matter. This is what I'm trying to explain. Winston Churchill himself called communism a Jewish plot and enthusiastically expressed his support for the Nazis during the 1920s and 30s in their struggle against communism. Anyway, Jews and communists were both blamed for having allegedly betrayed Germany during World War I and resulting in Germany signing the Treaty of Versailles in what is known as the stab in the back myth. In Poland, before World War II, Zdokumuna was used in the same way to allege that Jews were conspiring with the Soviet Union to invade Poland. According to Andre Geritz, the myth of Jewish communism was one of the most popular and widespread political prejudices in the first half of the 20th century, in Eastern Europe in particular. The allegation still sees use in anti-Semitic publications and websites today. Also, that allegation is literally a formative one in the modern Republican Party. The world of Pfizer are Jews. The whole of Pfizer are Jews. Genocide vax. Yes, dude. Yes. The Jewish doctors and the executives that are engaging in mass inoculation campaigns are actually doing it to genocide everyone. You're right. You got that. You're hitting the double Monty. Where are these chatters coming from, dude? Anyway, I don't get it. Is summer break? The kiddos are out. Major General Ulysses S. Grant was influenced by such sentiments during the American Civil War, expelling Jews from areas under his control in Western Tennessee. The Jews as a class violating every regulation or trade establishment by the Treasury Department and also department orders are hereby expelled within 24 hours from the receipt of his order. That order was quickly rescinded by Abraham Lincoln, but it was already enforced in a number of towns. Also, being an open communist is literally illegal in Poland and can get you a 3-year sentence. Still like what? Yes. Poland is still operating on some very weird and unique boundaries, okay? And therefore, they never get to see the top of the hour ad break, which comes at the top of every hour and is 3 minutes long. They don't get to see it, though, because they don't really have a lot of computers over there. Now, we looked at a lot of the fascists and their opinion on Judeo-Bolshevism, and we looked at a lot of the American leaders and drew comparisons as to what, like, you know, modern American leaders think about Judaism, stuff like that. So let's hear from, because a lot of people will also nowadays say like communists are anti-Semitic or whatever. But let's hear from one of the godfathers of real existing communist revolution, socialist revolution, a bald man by the name of Lenin. Let's hear what he had to say about anti-Semitism.
Антисемитизмом называется распространение вражды к евреям.
Hold on, let me just start it here. Anti-Semitism means spreading enmity towards the Jews. The accursed Tsarist monarchy was living its last day. It tried to incite ignorant workers and peasants against the Jews. The Tsarist police, in alliance with the landowners and the capitalists, organized pogroms against the Jews.
Zone B compromised. Zone contested.
In other countries, too, we often see the capitalists fomenting hatred against the Jews in order to blind the workers, to divert their attention from the real enemy of the working people, capital. Hatred towards the Jews persists only in those countries where slavery to the landowners and capitalists has created abysmal ignorance among the workers and peasants. Only the most ignorant and downtrodden people can believe the lies and slander that are spread about the Jews. This is a survival of ancient feudal times, when the priests burned heretics at the stake, when the peasants lived in slavery, and when the people were crushed and inarticulate. This ancient feudal ignorance is passing away. The eyes of the people are being opened. It is not the Jews who are the enemies of the working people. The enemies of the workers are the capitalists of all countries. Among the Jews, there are working people, and they form the majority. They are our brothers who, like us, are oppressed by capital. They are our comrades in the struggle for socialism. Remember, his number one, what is it called when you have like a male buddy that you send letters to? Pen pal. Yeah, his number one pen pal was Rosa Luxemburg. So, you know. Among the Jews, there are kulaks, exploiters and capitalists, just like there are among the Russians and among people of all nations. The capitalists strive to sow and foment hatred between workers of different faiths, different nations, and different races. Those who do not work are kept in power by the power and strength of capital. Rich Jews, like rich Russians, and the rich in all countries are in alliance to oppress, crush, and rob and disunite the workers. Shame on accursed Tsarism, which tortured and persecuted the Jews. Shame on those who foment hatred towards the Jews, who foment hatred towards other nations. Long live the fraternal trust and fighting alliance of the workers of all nations in the struggle to overthrow capital. Literally anyone who compares Bolshevik anti-Semitism, which did exist and was largely inherited from the Russian Empire, is a fool. The USSR anti-Semitism was nothing compared to Tsarist and the massive pogroms that brutally massacred Jewish population throughout the Russian Empire, and even many white emigre supported the Nazis against the USSR. Yeah, the Tsarist anti-Semitism is like, I would say, foundational in, I mean, dude, they wrote the protocols, dude. That's it. Like this literally is the most significant anti-Semitic text. Okay? Everything that you think about in terms of like everything that you've learned about anti-Semitism literally stems from this. An anti-Semitic text purported to describe a Jewish plan to achieve global domination and to document the minutes of a late 19th century meeting attended by world Jewish leaders, the elders of Zion, conspiring to take over the world. The fraudulent protocols included plans to subvert the morals of the non-Jewish world, to control the world's economies by Jewish bankers, to have present Jewish control of the press, and ultimately destroy civilization. The document of 24 protocols was analyzed by Stephen Jacobs and Mark Weitzman, who documented several protocols that suggested that Jews would employ control over the world's banking system to dominate the world. It is the Brothers Grimm of anti-Semitism, yes. Like, it is where all... I mean, dude, right there, like... That right there is straight up, and it was like mass delivered to any fascist who would listen, except for in Japan, where the Japanese that got a copy of it were like, oh my God, these are magic money people. We have to use their power for ourselves. We should put them in Manchuria, which is the funniest World War II fact, in my opinion. They could not understand why you would, jail these magic money people and were like, give them to us, please. Yeah, that Lenin speech at the same time in the U.S., Henry Ford's paper, here it is, was running excerpts from the protocols of the elders of Zion. Is that actually real? Yes. Japanese philo-Semitism is a very funny part of history that I was not privy to until recently. But yes, there's actually a lot of not just Japanese, but like Asian philo-Semitism in general, where like apparently the Talmud is like a very popular book in Korea, in South Korea, and in China as well, where they also still like kind of think Jews are magic money people, and that the Talmud will give them like good luck in finance. It's philo, not philo. Okay, philo-Semitism. I looked into the Talmud claim about Korea, but couldn't find anything that indicated it was a popular children's book. We read it in an article. It was I don't know. I forget which newspaper wrote about it, but we read a couple different articles actually that said that like my Chinese relatives all think Jewish people are good luck and very good at making money. Yeah, Hassan, why do you know so much about anti-Semitism? Because I am an anti-fascist. Because I'm an anti-capitalist. And capitalists and fascists, which are two peas in a pod, are actually historically and in contemporary society very anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism is seen as a canary in the coal mine for that reason. Anti-Semitism, and not like in the ADL Apartheid Defense League's definition of anti-Semitism, but like actual anti-Semitism. The notion that like Jews are monolithic in their understanding of the world and control the money supply and the media and use it to degenerate Western civilization. That kind of anti-Semitism oftentimes is a clear-cut indication that someone is most likely operating on fascist principles. This is also part of the reason why I extra mad about all of the bastardization of this like very serious charge, a charge of anti-Semitism done by, in some instances, Jewish people that are cynically weaponizing it, like with StopAntisemitism.org or ADL and many other defenders of Israel. It's ridiculous. It's fucked up. It dilutes real anti-Semitism while also creating an environment that is perfect for fascists to exploit. Anyway, we're done with the Nixon stuff. I deviated here. I got here specifically because we were having a conversation about Germans and how in modern Germany, for numerous reasons, and I've talked about this before a million times over at this point, for a lot of self-serving reasons, modern Germans are unconditional dick riders of the state of Israel. Some of the reasons for that are, of course, the collective guilt of the Holocaust. But I think that the real reason, the real nefarious reason, is that there's a lot of Islamophobia in Germany, and a lot of people spiritually, holistically, I think, in Germany, see Israel and a defense of Israel and the collective, antiquated, ancient, epigenetic anti-Semitism of the Arabs that they believe and repeatedly reinforce as a way to kind of move the attention away from the unimaginable wrongs that the German state dished out against Jews during the Holocaust. It's a way to really sidestep the Holocaust, to be like, no, you know who's the real anti-Semites actually? The Arabs, the Muslims. I think that's what it is. That's a major reason for why they are such unconditional dick riders for Israel. It's great. It's great for them.
We're winning. Keep it up, agent. Allies on B. Secure all the zones. This should be familiar territory.
I do love that they are like so unhinged and so hopped up on power that they think that there is no way in hell that this kind of communication would ever be unearthed, and they would face zero repercussions. Anyway, all right, let's watch this. How this couple was almost murdered over a blog post by a friend of the show, Dantavius.
Behind your computer screen. You don't have the balls to talk to me? Stop hiding behind your computer screen.
Ina Steiner received this message on August 9th, 2019 at 2:49 p.m. 10 minutes later, she got this bizarre voicemail.
Hi, Ina. Your wet specimen is ready to be delivered. You'll have to sign for it.
Wet specimen? What the hell is a wet specimen? Sounds like something you leave in the toilet after eating Chipotle, she thought to herself. Ina's husband, David, called FedEx and asked them what a wet specimen was. Turns out it was a dead pig fetus, like the kind you dissect in high school biology. As to why it was being sent to their house, they had no idea. Things only got more disturbing from there. Later that same day, a package showed up on the Steiners' porch. Ina went against her better judgment and decided to open it up. Huge mistake. As soon as she saw the contents, she let out a blood-curdling scream. Inside the box was a severed pig's face attached to a clump of human hair. Well, actually, it was just a Halloween mask from the movie Saw. Ina was relieved when she realized that, until she remembered Saw was about a psychopathic killer who kidnapped and tortured people.
Wanna play a little game?
Not even 10 minutes later, she received another message.
Do I have your attention now?
This was not an isolated incident. By the time these packages arrived, the Steiners were being terrorized for an entire month by some psychotic individuals. And the worst part about it was, they had no idea why. So who even are the Steiners in the first place? Well, for the most part, they were your typical middle-aged suburban couple, except they ran a website called e-commerce bites, which tracked news and trends across e-commerce platforms like Amazon, Etsy, and eBay. They quickly built up a small but active following and gained a reputation as being one of the most trusted sources for anything e-commerce related. People really love this website. Well, I mean, not everyone, actually. Some people really hated it. Since its inception in 1999, e-commerce bites only had 2 employees. Ina, who wrote the articles, and David, who handled the business side of things. By all accounts, the Steiners were upstanding members of the community, and nobody had a bad word to say about them. So why were they being targeted? Maybe they weren't as wholesome as they seemed, or maybe they just pissed off the wrong person. Let's go back to the day the harassment first started, and we'll try to put the pieces together as we go. Oh, and on a completely unrelated note, I've been watching a lot of Law & Order SVU, so that might come out in this video a little bit.
On YouTube, there are 2 types of videos. Low-quality soulless slop that's churned out on a weekly basis with sole purposes of making as much money as possible, and based videos. This is the latter.
It's 3 a.m. The Steiners are fast asleep when suddenly they're awoken by the sound of a phone ringing. It's an unknown number, but David picks up anyways. Has this man never seen a horror movie? When he answers the phone, he's greeted by heavy breathing, followed by the person hanging up. Okay,
I think nowadays, because of like so many robocallers and shit, most people will never pick up a phone number if they don't recognize it.
A little weird, but hey, maybe it's just...
But it makes sense. Back then, they're kind of boomers. They probably thought like, oh yeah, I'll pick it up.
Wrong number. David thought nothing of it and went back to bed. The next morning, he went to check his mail and noticed that his fence had been vandalized. Somebody spray painted the word Phytomaster on it. What the heck was a Phytomaster? Was that the name of the vandal? Was Phytomaster the person who called him in the middle of the night? Luckily, things calmed down after that. For like a month. Seemingly out of nowhere, Ina started getting a ton of aggressive DMs on Twitter from someone with the handle Tui Ilay. Things like this.
Ina, what's your problem with eBay? You know that's how we pay rent, right?
Remember this one, because it's going to be important.
Hello? What the f is it going to take for you to answer me?
To be fair, it wasn't the first time she got hate messages, but it was never this bad. Still, she tried to just ignore it. Then things started getting weirder and weirder. The Steiners' work email was bombarded with all sorts of weird-ass subscriptions. InfoWars, Sin City Fetish Nights, the Satanic Temple, and most disturbingly, Franklin the Turtle Fan Club.
Bro, I swear to God, there's just like, we still don't have a decent way of like dealing with psychopathic like cyber stalkers. We just have no way, which is kind of crazy. Like there's just no, as long as someone's got a will, dude, so if someone is like willing and motivated, they can just like just keep doing insane amounts of internet crime.
Meanwhile, the hate messages continue to pour in.
I'm waiting. I don't like waiting. I guess I'm gonna have to get your attention another way, bitch.
This message was sent the night before the wet specimen incident, and this was only the beginning. After they got the pig mask, the Steiners would continue to receive all sorts of weird deliveries on an almost daily basis. Everything from pizzas to pornos to boxes of live cockroaches and spiders. David and Ina were so freaked out that they adopted the lifestyle of a Reddit mod and stopped going outside completely unless it was absolutely necessary. And on those rare occasions when they did venture out of the house, they noticed that they were being tailed by a black van. By this point, they were so traumatized that they didn't know if they were actually being followed or they were just going insane. Because every time they called the cops, the black van would disappear like it never existed. Police couldn't make heads or tails of the situation. Whoever was behind this, they were no amateurs. They were organized and they covered their tracks well. But not well enough. Eventually, Natick PD was able to get the license plate of the black van. It was rented by a woman named Veronica Zay. This must have been some kind of mistake. When you think of a stalker, it's usually somebody that looks like this, not an attractive 25-year-old woman. The police decided to question her anyways. They found out she was staying at a hotel in Boston nearby, so they called her room and her husband picked up. He said she would be down right away to chat with them, but she never came down. Instead, she got on a plane to California. Natick PD had to get the FBI involved, and it didn't take them long to track her down. Turns out, Zay worked for a company called Progressive Force Concepts, a security firm contracted by eBay.
No
flew down to
way. No. Bro, Pinkertons, dude? eBay was doing Pinkerton shit? Yo, what the Okay, this does unironically make me sometimes feel like a lot of people be like, Hassan, you got like hella stalkers, people sending you death threats and shit. Like, do you ever feel like maybe it's, you know, agencies that are involved in this circumstance? And now it makes me feel like, who knows? Maybe that's not that far-fetched. I don't know.
Jose to interrogate Zay, and she's saying like a fucking...
I've always operated under the assumption that these dudes are doing it on their own volition because they're just like schizophrenic and brain broken into believing that I am the greatest evil that has ever graced the fiber optic cables that serve people, you know, content on the internet, directed by at least like multiple communities that spend an insane amount of time. But who knows?
She, along with about a dozen other eBay employees, were part of a conspiracy to harass, intimidate, and defame the Steiners. In the grand scheme of things, Zay was just a low-level grunt, but this thing went straight to the top. I'm talking the very top. Multiple C-level executives were all involved in this conspiracy. That begs the question, what the heck did the Steiners do to deserve these months of psychological torture?
To spend 20 years, my career, reporting on e-commerce and helping small businesses to find out that the scope, meaning how many people did this to us. That within the company it was all the way up, and it was not a secret between two people.
This was basically, this was corporate terrorism.
eBay,
that's crazy.
On Etsy is one of the big three e-commerce platforms. So obviously it was a frequent topic on e-commerce sites, which, by the way, just a little side thing, this video is going to be very biased against eBay. I'm just going to come right out and say that. I hate eBay, okay? I tried to buy a pair of Adidas track pants off of there once, and they sent me these. What the hell is top tier sport? Like, the H in here isn't even capitalized, but every other word is capitalized. Also, they banned me in 2016 for selling bootleg Family Guy DVDs, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, in the early days, eBay had a very positive relationship with e-commerce sites.
Bro, got the Hamas special Abibas, dude.
One time, Ina was even invited to eBay headquarters for a meet and greet with the executives. But all of that changed when this mother sucker, Devin Wenig, joined the company. You see, sometimes e-commerce bites would publish articles that were lightly critical of eBay and its leadership. And this man's fragile ego just could not get his balls getting busted even a little bit. As the years went on, Wenig and his fellow executives grew to hate e-commerce bites with a passion. But for the most part, they let it go because they couldn't do anything about it. That is until 2019. A group of eBay's most powerful people held a secret meeting in the C-suite to discuss the solution to the so-called Ina Steiner problem. We don't know exactly what was discussed in this meeting, but we do have some text messages from after. On April 10th, Wenig texted Steve Weimer, eBay's CCO, a link to an article titled, "eBay CEO makes 152 times that of employees. Devin was livid. Weimer texted back, "We are going to crush this lady." A couple days later, Winnick texted Weimer, "The Journal is next after Ina Steiner." Not exactly sure what this was in response to, but I think it has something to do with this article from the Wall Street Journal. You know, I can see why he got pissed off at this one, actually. That's highly unprofessional. By this time, eBay had an entire dedicated team of people whose only job was to monitor e-commerce bites around the clock and forward any relevant posts up the chain of command. So a question you might be asking yourself is, why all of a sudden in 2019 were these people spurting out so badly? Well, it's because of this guy, Paul Singer. In January of 2019, Singer's firm Elliott Investment Management bought a $1.3 billion stake in eBay.
So, why is this important? And why am I so close to the camera? Well, I don't have an answer to the second question, but I do have an answer to the first. Paul Singer was your typical cutthroat evil billionaire archetype.
Billionaire activist investor Paul Singer has been called the Vulture Lord and a...
This is making me reconsider all the times that I've talked shit about Steak and Kick. I was just kidding, okay? My bad. I was lying. Gambling is sick, especially crypto gambling. It ain't f***ed up at all. I swear. It's so good. See? I take it back. All those other times, not Eddie is cool. He wouldn't kill you. Yeah, he is cool. And also, he would never do that. And also, these guys weren't killing the Steiners. They were just stalking them. But yeah, I love Kick, and I love eBay, and I love billionaires, and I...
Bloodsucker by the former Argentine president Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. He's also been labeled a raider and a profiteer. He's feared the world over for hostile boardroom takeovers and profiting from debt-laden countries. He's so powerful, he brought Argentina to its knees and set off a chain of events that led to the impeachment of South Korea's president in 2017.
Our boy Devin Wenig was rightfully scared shitless of this guy, especially after Elliott Management released a public letter saying that eBay was underperforming. Now, this letter was essentially a thinly veiled threat telling the executives, hey, if you guys don't get your shit together, I'm gonna talk to the board and get you out of here. So Wenig and his pals had to make sure that all criticism of eBay was kept to a minimum, or else they could lose their jobs. And they basically had two ways of going about this. Number one, they could do a better job and improve the company. Or number two, they could embark on a psychopathic harassment campaign to silence all their critics.
I think
they went with option two. Oh, and by the way, the Steiners weren't eBay's only ops.
Phytomaster. Remember him from the spray paint?
Were they asking for it like the guy in Baby Reindeer? Bitch, I never said he was asking for it. You're so annoying. See? Dude, my weirdos are in here, okay? They're born out of this community. I promise. They are born out of this community. It's not like corporations that are hiring people to say mentally ill things. It's just they're in here.
This man was basically eBay's biggest hater. He could frequently be seen in the comment section of e-commerce bites shitting on eBay and its leaders. When he wasn't doing that, he was on Twitter shitting on eBay and its leaders under his handle @UnsuckEBay. Steve Weimer in particular really hated this guy.
I am utterly vexed by this. This Twitter account dominates our social narrative with his constant obsession with trolling us. There are a few people, including Ina Steiner, who have seemingly dedicated their lives to erroneously trashing us. I genuinely believe these people are acting out of malice, and anything we can do to solve it should be explored. Whatever it takes.
On August 1st, Ina published another article that really rustled Devin Wenig's jimmies. It was about how he built an exact replica of this Manhattan bar called Walker's West on the eBay campus. Phytomaster tweeted out a link to Ina's article and criticized Wenig for undertaking such a big, expensive project while eBay was going through layoffs, cost reductions, and scrutiny from Elliott Management. This was the beginning of the end. Wenig gave the order, if we're ever going to take her down, now's the time. eBay's brass got together again and decided to turn things up a notch. Phytomaster had to go, but first they had to deal with...
Guys, it's a great Pandu. I already said I love Kick. I love all of the communities that you come from. I was wrong, and I love capitalism. Please.
Ina Steiner. But obviously these two schmucks weren't gonna get their own hands dirty. That's where this guy, Jim Baugh, comes into the picture. He was eBay's head of safety and security.
Stop! You violated the law.
According to court documents, before coming to eBay, Baugh worked for the U.S. government, where he quotes,
engaging in various activities on the government's behalf, including conducting physical and electronic surveillance, engaging in physical trespass, and using false pretenses to gain unauthorized access to private resources.
So this man was no stranger to doing some shady shit. Weimer passed on Wenig's request to take her down to our boy Jim Baugh. He also added, hatred is a sin. I am very sinful. I'm not around with her anymore. I want her done. She is a biased troll who needs to get burned down. This man is actually comically evil. So this Baugh fellow was pretty much given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted.
Okay, I want to reiterate something here. They're talking about like a literal wife and husband operation that's just posting a blog about e-commerce websites, including but not limited to eBay. That is insane. This is, oh my God.
He started by formulating the most psychotically evil scheme ever. It was simple. He would get a bunch of his goons to terrorize the Steiners until they couldn't take it anymore. Then eBay would come in and offer to help them. They would be so grateful that they would only write articles glazing eBay from that point on. He called this the White Knight strategy. And if this kind of sounds like the plot to Body of Lies, that's because it is. And he came up with this idea after watching that movie. Exactly 1 week after his conversation with Weimer, Baugh put his plan into motion. On August 8th, Baugh sent one of his henchmen out to Natick to spray paint Phytomaster on the fence. Because, according to Jim, that was weird. According to Jim, what the fuck?
Bro, come on.
Jim Baugh thought that Phytomaster's true identity was David Steiner. Spoiler alert, it was not. Now, the graffiti was just a little taste, a tap on the shoulder, if you will. Things would continue to ramp up from there, as we know. After the spray paint, Baugh met up with his team to brainstorm more ways that they could fuck with the Steiners. He let them know that they had complete support from the higher-ups and showed them all the messages from Steve Weimer. Some of the ideas were silly, like sending them gift boxes full of poop.
I do love that they are like so unhinged and so hopped up on power that they think that there is no way in hell that this kind of communication would ever be unearthed, and they would face zero repercussions. Now, I don't know what happened to the eBay executives that did this. I hope they got at least some level of punishment. It's crazy.
Others were more serious, like planting crystal meth in their car or burning down their house. But eventually, they settled somewhere in the middle of these two things, and they came up with a 5-step plan. Step 1, trolling. Baugh instructed some of his employees to create accounts that would send horrible messages to Ina Steiner on a daily basis. This was real nasty stuff.
Your fat husband, David, needs to be put in line after he takes the plugs out of his assholes.
What? What does that even mean? And like I said earlier, they also signed the Steiners up for like 100 different email lists, fetish sites, Scientology newsletters, Breitbart, vaping, BuzzFeed, just a bunch of vile nonsense like that. Oh, and listen to this. One day, a man showed up to their house holding a box of condoms and a bottle of Mad Dog 2020. Turns out the trolls were making fake posts on Craigslist, claiming that the Steiners were having everything must go yard sales, or they were hosting gangbangs at their house.
I'm here for the gangbang?
I'm not joking about this at all, by the way.
Mature married couples seeking singles or other couples open to explore threesomes, BDSM, or cross-dressing. 420 friendly. Please send pics/stats for more info.
You know, this would be funny if it wasn't so psychotic. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's still kind of funny, and I feel bad for thinking that. Step 2, intimidation. So we already covered that the Steiners...
Hostiles on A. Friendlies on B. All zones in enemy hands. Take them back. We're taking A. Capture zone secured. compromised.
Refreshing.
Changing mag.
Take the zones, keep the zones. You know the mission. Friendlies moving on C. Zone B is vulnerable.
Going dark.
Zone compromised. Our side is succeeding. Maintain these tactics. Zone B is vulnerable. Zone compromised. Friendlies moving on C. Friendlies on B. Capture zone secured. The arrows producing close to winning. Hold on. Zone contested.
Engage ammo.
We're losing A. Rogue Echelon agent activating sonar goggles. Zone secured. The brass will never do it, so I will. Control agent. Domination. I'll tag 3 objectives on your OPSAT. Assault them at your discretion. Three, 2, 1. Secure those capture zones, Agent.
Frag out!
Team capturing Zone C. Friendlies going for Zone B. Capture zone secured.
Using flashbang! Engaging camo! Going dark.
Capture zone contested.
Grenade out!
Deployed.
Active camo!
I'm detecting hostiles on Zone C. Lethal force utilized. You're down, but never out, Agent. You got this. Hostiles hold all capture zones. Start making some noise, Agent.
Engage camo.
Team capturing Zone C. Capture zone contested. Zone secured. Friendlies capturing Zone A. I'm detecting hostiles on Zone C. Capture Zone A is at risk.
Going dark. Active camo. Throwing EMP.
Capture zone contested.
Swapping mags! Cover me!
Friendlies going for Zone B. I'm detecting hostiles on Zone C.
Engaging camo.
Vengeance. I'll allow it. Friendlies on B.
Camo.
They're on Zone C. Zone secured. Zone B is vulnerable. keeps the zones. You know the mission.
Active camo. I require first aid.
Frag out! Heads up. I'm detecting our sonar tech in enemy hands. Allies on B. Zone compromised.
Active camo.
I'll start filling out the mission failure report. Get a head start on the bookkeeping. Zone C is falling.
Throw in a frag.
That was hardly by the book, Agent.
Had a pig fetus, a pig mask, and boxes of insects sent to their house. That was just the tip of the iceberg. At one point, it got really dark. David Steiner was sent a book called How to Deal with the Death of a Spouse, which is horrendous on its own, but they also sent him a funeral wreath along with a card that said, "I'm sorry for your loss." So now they've gone beyond trolling to straight up death threats. At this point, the Steiners were in a...
Bro, did they hire, like, a bunch of Kiwi Farms posters or some shit? Like, what the this is literally like a direct one-to-one DGG Kiwi Farms 4chan poll, like direct one-to-one. Like, there are literally Discord servers full of people who do this shit right now, probably even watching this stream. I didn't realize that like corporations did stuff like this. I thought this was like almost exclusively antisocial personality disordered people who are too agoraphobic to go out and do a school shooting. Like, I thought that that was where they congregated. I didn't realize that this is like...
Domination. This op's a bit raucous for the Echelon playbook, but I'm sure you'll manage. Three, two, one. Your mission is to secure the capture zones. Team capturing Zone C. Capture zone secured.
Active camo.
Friendly's going for Zone B. Capture zone contested. I'm detecting hostiles on Zone C.
EMP out!
You're down, but never out, Agent. You got this.
Engage camo.
Lethal force utilized. Zone secured. Capture zone contested. Revenge. I can't condone it, but I get it.
Engage camo.
Hostiles on the scope in Zone B.
Retaliation.
I'm detecting hostiles on Zone C. Friendlies capturing Zone A. Friendlies going for Zone B. Capture Zone A is at risk. Capture Zone contested. Friendlies going for Zone B. Zone contested. Friendlies on B.
Engage camo.
Zone secured. Zone B is vulnerable. Zone compromised. Friendlies on Zone C. Hostiles are winning, Agent. Rogue Echelon Agent activated sonar goggles. Take the zones, keep the zones. You know the mission. Allies on B. Was that revenge? Heads up. I'm detecting our sonar tech in any...
Engage the camo.
Zone contested. You might still pull this out in the end, but nah, I don't think so.
Engage the camo.
I think we all see where this is heading. Time to think about extraction options. Don't make this a habit, Agent.
Alright, I'm actually going to get off now, but I'll be back on later. What is this picking up? Is this volume still up? No. It might be picking up the fan. I gotta turn the noise gate. Go.
Loadout updated. Secure those.
Wait, whoa. I gotta get out of here. No. Quit. I'll be back on this afternoon. Goodbye to me.